And now, coming to Britain, you find that, you know, you are not in that second class citizen status now. You have come to Britain to study from abroad. You are going to be a university student. So our status changed overnight. So there were many of these type of cultural changes, and you have to learn to adapt yourself, right? So I spent 3 years at Hull University, and I read geography because, as I said, we didn't have science and maths, so my choice was limited. But I really loved geography because I always wanted to travel a lot. 3 years later, I had a BA honors in geography, and then by that time, 1963, Kenya had become independent from the British rule. And the minute Kenya became independent, it ended all these type of segregational programs. So they said there are no more Kenya Asian teacher scholarships, and if you want to stay in UK, you have to fund yourself. So in the summer of 1965, I worked as a waitress in a Greek restaurant. I worked as a nursery school teacher, and I worked as a postwoman. Because in Britain at that time there is a heavy amount of post during Christmas time, but then there is also snow, so you have to walk in the snow and go and deliver the letters in the post boxes of all the homes, right? And people were Yorkshire people on the whole are very hospitable. They are warm. They are not like southern England, right? Southern England is a bit cold. The people are very cold there. And London is a huge city, so London has so many different types. Nobody wants to bother with anybody else, right? But Yorkshire is very different. So I had a very good time there. And you meet so many people there from different religions. You get to know about different sects of different religions, you know. So university is a very exciting place, particularly if you are an overseas student, right? And every time we had other minor holidays. The summer holiday was the longest, but the minor holidays around Christmas time, etc., I would take the opportunity to travel in Europe. The British Council used to organize these type of tours, so I toured a lot of countries: Scandinavia, Italy, Netherlands, you know, France, all these places, Spain. And then 3 years later, I had to finance myself. So my mother helped me a little bit, as well as my own earnings. And I went to Bristol University, as you said in the introduction, to do my postgraduate certificate in education. That gives you the license to teach in any country, even in Britain. You need a postgraduate certificate in education after your degree. And I got that. Bristol is a very beautiful city. I enjoyed the life there. There were a few Ismailis there. We had a Jamaat Khana in somebody's house. So that was a much better environment for me as an Ismaili. And of course, we used to go to London off and on. And the Jamaat Khana in London was at 5 Palace Gate, which was a very old building, many floors. It was both like a hostel as well as Jamaat Khana. But the Jamaat in United Kingdom in the 60s was very small. It was only a few businessmen and many students. But there were no families there, for instance, right? It was a very different mix of people. When I finished my degree at Bristol University, I went back to Kenya, and for a year I taught at an African girls' boarding school. The Aga Khan School offered me a job, But I felt that since Kenya had given me a scholarship, I should serve the people of Kenya first. So I taught for a year at this African boarding school for girls. It was a Christian school. During the colonial times, because the government was British, the church also came after the rulers, right? And my girls' school was built by the Anglican Church. And just opposite it, in the next valley, was a boys' school built by the Roman Catholic sect, right? Because there was competition who could convert more Africans into Christianity, right? So I taught at this girls' school in what is called the Taita Hills. It's about 1.5, 2 hours from Mombasa by road. And that was a good experience, to be independent, to have your own house, to have your own servant, and to be there all the time, 24 hours. During that time, I met these two teachers, English teachers, and one physiotherapist. They were all VSOs, Voluntary Service Overseas. This is a British organization, and they send young graduates all over the world to do voluntary service overseas. They are paid, but they are paid the same salaries as the local people, right? Okay. And these three English girls, one of them has now, the physiotherapist has expired, but the other two are still my friends in London, and in fact, one of them is a member of the House of Lords. And that is why when I wrote A Bridge Between Two Epochs, we had an opening ceremony for the book at the House of Lords. 1 year later, I then joined, because my mother was keen that I should come back to Mombasa. So I joined the Aga Khan High School, and I taught English as well as geography to the students there. And I taught there for up to 1973. So that was how many years? From 66, 67 in the African Girls' School, and from 67 to 72 in the Aga Khan schools. Aga Khan Secondary School, and then later in the Aga Khan Private Secondary School as well. And there was also a special school. So all these were Aga Khan institutions. And the Aga Khan schools were all open to all races. There was no discrimination of a race or creed or religion or anything like this. So our schools have, in other words, Maulana Hazar Imam, and before him our 48th Imam, Maulana Sultan Shah, they have served humanity, not just the Jamaat, but the rest of humanity have been served by the Aga Khan institutions.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my early life up to my university studies and then starting my profession.
Okay, Mama. The next question is, we know that your services to the Jamaati institutions have been incredible. Could you tell us how you started this journey or any significant event that you want to share related to Jamaati institutions?
Okay. Yes, so, because when you have a certain level of education, then automatically you play a role within the institution. So in my case, I was appointed to the hostel board. There was an Aga Khan hostel in Mombasa, and this hostel served Ismaili boys and girls who were from Tanzania or from Uganda who wanted to come and study in Kenya. I think everybody thought Kenya had a better education level, so quite a few Ismailis came from smaller towns to study in Mombasa. So we had an Aga Khan hostel for girls and boys. And this hostel was I was a board member. And very interestingly, Prince Sadruddin, whenever he had a home in Mombasa on the beach. Mombasa has very beautiful beaches, north and south of it, right? Prince Sadruddin had a very beautiful house in a part of the coast called Diani. And he and his wife, Princess Alia, they were very fond of children. And so they would come every time they would visit the hostel. And of course, the board members had to be there to receive them and to, be the hosts. Yes, I remember that, I had the privilege of pouring tea for Prince Sadruddin and talking to him. He was the United Nations Commissioner for Refugees, and at that time, and so I remember that very well. And then Prince Sadruddin would always reciprocate by inviting all the board members and the entire hostel, boys and girls. We would get into a bus and we would go to his home on the beach and spend the whole day in his house and swim in the sea and, play games on the sand. So I met Prince Sadruddin on many occasions, more than once. So that was my, if you like, institutional service in Mombasa, right? In 1973, as I said, 72, 73, I had saved enough money to now travel. So I decided that I would go to India. And the day I flew from Nairobi was the day India and Pakistan declared war against each other. So I landed in Bombay and it was curfew, right? So it was a blackout. But it is really amazing that in Bombay they would put paper on the headlamps, but only leave a strip open so to be able to see the light, right? And bombs were falling, right? And you had to rush down to the ground floor. And similarly, you will hear from Dr. Hunzai that he was in Karachi at that time, right? And I was in Mumbai. So we seem to have had similar experiences. Anyway, I traveled widely on my own. India was a very safe place at that time compared to Pakistan. Nobody would approach a woman, yeah? It was really a very, very safe. It is no longer safe. It's quite a dangerous place for women now, right? But at that time, I traveled all over India. So I had contacts in Goa from my Goan teacher friends. They showed me a lot. In Bombay, I had my cousin. My cousin, Sakina Ben, was the daughter of Ali Muhammad Daya, who is a very famous missionary who converted many, many Hindus to the Ismaili Tariqa. He was my father's only sister's husband, right? So my cousin encouraged me. I went to Bangalore and Madras and Kanyakumari, and then I went north to Delhi. You go to places like Ajanta, the caves, which are Buddhist paintings. India has a lot to offer. And Agra, Fatehpur Sikri, see the Taj Mahal. And then I went to Calcutta because my Goan friend's brother was the bishop in Calcutta. And it was a time of Holi, where they use those pumps to spray colored paints on everybody. So this bishop, he put me in a covered jeep so that nobody could throw paint on me to take me to the airport. Because now I had a choice. I could either go to Kashmir or I could go to Chittagong in Bangladesh to meet my uncle, who was this great missionary. Ali Muhammad died here. So I decided I should go and see my father's only sister and her husband. So I flew to Dhaka. The war had just finished. This war was about what was then East Pakistan, right? But then it had become Bangladesh. So I arrived in Dhaka 1 week after the war finished. And so my uncle had contacted the council in Dhaka, and a group of young men with beards. They came to collect me at the airport, you know. I was on my own. They said, Yalima, they said, we are here to receive you on behalf of the secretary of the council, and we are going to his home. Okay. So we went to his home. And he was very kind. But then after I had settled into his home, he said, I'm afraid you can't go to Chittagong. So I said, why? He said, because the only railway line, the bridge was blown up, so there's no railway now. East Pakistan had one airline, which was bombed, so there's no way you can fly. And you can't go by road because everybody has a gun, and you will not come out alive. So he said, you stay with us, and then, when you want, you can go back to India. I said, no. I haven't come here to stay with you. I've come here to meet my aunt, whom I've never seen before, and I want to meet her husband as well. So I was very obstinate, right? And they said, no. So they decided they have to help me. They approached the local flying club. There was a flying club of, small aeroplanes, which some local pilots were flying. So they arranged for me. I had enough money to pay for that. And so it was a biplane, the pilot and I in the front seat. Nobody in the back on our way out. And we were flying at the height of 2,000 feet. So I saw the whole of Bangladesh from this flight. And I arrived in Chittagong, and my aunt and uncle's grandchildren, they came to meet me. They took me home, and my uncle said, you could still hear occasional bullets in the air. He said, no, it's such a dangerous place. Why did you come? I said, no, I had to come and see you and my aunt. Otherwise, I will never meet her again. So I stayed there for 3 days because the pilot had to come back to take me back to Dhaka. So he came back, and then there were 2 Ismailis who also wanted to come to Dhaka, so they sat in the back seat. But unfortunately, they were not, they were air sick. They were air sick, so they were vomiting all the time in the flight. It was a bumpy flight, right? Anyway, that's my adventure in Bangladesh, first week of Bangladesh. And then I went back to Mumbai. I had flown out to India, but I decided to go back by ship because to cross the Indian Ocean and go to Mombasa. By that time, 1973, Idi Amin had already had his dream in Uganda. 72, he expelled all the Asians. So my mother said to me, I think you should go back to Britain. This Kenya and Uganda are no place for Asian women. Just go. We all had British passports, right, at that time. So I applied for a visa to return to Kenya, and for 6 months, maybe 9 months, I became the administrator of the Aga Khan Hospital in Mombasa.